Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Pagani. I am the chair of the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission, and I would like to welcome you to this month's hearing. Today's date is March 8th, 2023, and the time is 5 o'clock p.m. I would like to invite my fellow commission members to introduce themselves to you. We'll begin on my right, please.
Joseph Cox.
William Edwards.
Jordan Morris.
Francine Wasden.
Sally Davis.
Thank you. And joining us from city staff, we have this evening Mr. Chad Hobbs, the Associate City Attorney, Mr. Hudson Cheshire, the Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Emily Hayes, the Neighborhood Resources Coordinator, Mr. Jonathan Bowen, Planner, Ms. Angie Terrell is the Administrative Assistant, and Mr. Kevin Jones is providing audiovisual assistance for us this evening. Let me go over the general statement of the Historic Preservation Commission, and we'll go over the procedure for tonight's hearing. The general purpose of the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission is to preserve and protect the integrity of the buildings, sites, and structures of historic significance and interest in Tuscaloosa's historic neighborhoods. We are governed by Chapter 20, Article 2 of the Code of Tuscaloosa, which includes design guidelines that are posted on the city's website. Our decisions are based on these design guidelines and do not consider use or occupancy. We do consider such factors as architectural style, appropriateness of materials, and how the structure relates to other structures in the immediate neighborhood in determining the appropriateness of an application. Any approval of an application requires 5 affirmative votes. And if the certificate is approved, please be aware that there will be a final inspection by city staff of approved applications to ensure compliance with what was approved this evening. This is a public hearing. It is televised live on local cable, streamed online through Facebook, and is being recorded to be posted on the city's website. We ask for proper decorum, civility, and respect for others at all times. Prior to this meeting, notice was sent to adjacent property owners, and the public has been notified of the applications to be presented tonight. This hearing is a chance for the applicant to present their views on the case, for the public to make their views known about the project, and for commission members to gather relevant facts about the application before making its decision. And here's the basic procedure for this evening. City staff will introduce the application. The applicant will then have the chance to make any comments. The commissioners will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant questions about the case. I will then open the hearing to public comment. At the close of public comment, the commission will then discuss the matter and vote on the application. Any person wishing to speak on behalf of another person, group, or entity shall provide written authorization to the chairperson from that person, group, or entity being represented. Immediate family members, and we define that as a spouse, a parent, or a child, do not have to provide such written authorization when speaking on behalf of another immediate family member. And we ask the applicants to please leave the signs in your yard. City staff will be around in the next couple of days to pick them up. So let's move on. The commission members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of the members have a conflict of interest as defined by Section 6 of the commission bylaws with any of these items?
I do with case HPC 1123.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
I do HPC 1323.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. And I would like to ask city staff if proper notification has been provided for each of these agenda items.
It has.
Thank you very much. All right, and let's move to our first application for this evening. Mr. Bowen.
Good afternoon, Commission. The first case for tonight is HBC 823. Bobby Tesney petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for multiple additions and an alteration to the primary structure. This is at 2 Oakwood in the Oakwood Court Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. This is a primary structure view from the street. So this application or this house came before you last month. You can see they've started working on those repairs. Here we have the adjacent eastern property, southern and western. So this proposal is for an addition to the northeast corner of the primary structure. They are also petitioning to enclose a cornice around the primary structure with hardy materials, and there is also a proposal for a carport in the rear yard. This carport is a wood frame with hardy board siding and trim. So again, here we have the primary structure. We're going to go through just some images around the primary structure. And this is just a view from the rear yard facing forward. So you can see the addition in the back that was approved at the previous HPC meeting. And here we have the site plan. There's a couple of things I want to note. This section here is not being up for discussion tonight. They're not going to change anything with the porch area. Instead, they're just asking for the proposed addition and that proposed carport, as well as a cornice, which will show in additional elevations. But this is a site plan that gives a good general view of where those additions are located. So here we have the proposed and existing east elevation. This section right in here is where that addition will be located or will be viewed from the east. You can also note the closing of the rafters. Here we have the existing and proposed west elevation. That highlighted portion is where the new addition will begin. And then here's the proposed rear view of the building. So looking back at this portion from the rear yard, that section on the left side of the screen, that was recently approved. So the materials are for hardy board siding, aluminum clad windows, and fiberglass doors. Here we have those material spec sheets for the doors and for those windows. And then here are our applicable design guidelines for this property. We did not receive any public comment in support or opposition to this application, and we do have the petitioners here to speak in person.
Are there any questions for city staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Bowen.
I'm sorry, I saw the drawing of the addition, but I didn't, was there a drawing of the carport?
Yes, that didn't make it into the PowerPoint, but I can pull that up to show those proposed drawings. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Pat Roberts. I live at 3816 64th Street Northeast.
Well, Mr. Roberts, what can you tell us about your project?
We're wanting to add a master bedroom bathroom to the back of the building. Currently two-bedroom home. Everything keeping in same plane, same line with the west profile of the building on the long wall of the building, so everything is no offset, continuous siding. Matching windows that were approved for the front of the house where we've replaced all of the windows. Matching siding that was approved for the rest of the building that's approved in the district, all hardy siding. Matching roof pitch so that we're not creating any offsets. As a matter of fact, on the back side of the building where the previous corner that was approved was the first part of unifying the eave line and eave height across the back of the building rather than having a couple of offsets, where they had a couple of different shed roof planes that were mismatched. So all of that will be gone. It will be unified eave line, 10-foot eave line on all planes on all of the building.
And you want to put a cornice molding up?
We have kind of a dilemma. On the back of the building, we want to use the hardy trim, enclosed cornice, hardy fascia, hardy soffit, so that we have something that's a little more maintenance friendly. On the front side of the building, where you have exposed tails, we have a lot of rotten tails. We have a lot of pieces that have been sistered beside them. We have some rotten decking. We have some issues with the barge rafters on the front of the house. And to to replace that properly, to repair it properly is kind of prohibitive because we have to take the roof decking back on into the house basically in order to reproduce the roof decking and replace the rafter tail. So we would rather be able to repair it and not have to maintain the design, but be able to enclose it and unify it with the addition on the back side of the building. And then it's all enclosed cornice. There are a couple of examples of that in Oakwood where that has been done in the past.
Right. One sec. Mr. Bowen, can you show us, let's get a photo up of the structure showing the rafter tails? Yeah, if we get a photo of it.
Yeah, you got photos of the tails, I think.
Yeah, where'd it go?
That's carport design. Okay.
Okay, so you're proposing you're going to enclose those rafter tails?
Yes, ma'am. If you look at that picture, if you look right now, there between the two windows that are up there, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4 rafters that are rotting on top. Because what happens is, of course, as the shingles go bad, it goes through its life cycle, and then you start getting a roof leak. You don't see it inside the building. It starts to decay on the bottom end of the building first. So if you look at I don't have my pointer. You got a pointer, Hickey? Right. If I touch screen that, right there.
Yep.
All those are rotten. There's several examples of that around both sides of the building, and it becomes, I can't cut it off and just put a piece back in its place. I have to go inside the roof, which means I have to pull the roofing back, I have to pull the decking back. It also makes it prohibitive on the back end of the house to do that, and I don't want it to mismatch. But if I do that design on the back side of the building, then what I have to do is cut all the rafter tails, obviously. Then I have to deck it with beadboard so that all that exposed decking is shown. Then I have to deck over the top of it again with a piece of 1/2-inch material so that I'm not shooting roofing nails through my material. I have to make that thicker because the original material and the beadboard and on the roof decking is 3/4 material. So now we're shooting dimensional shingles with 1.25 nails. So what happens is, and you've seen it on a lot of the old houses down there when they replace the roof, you got nails profiling coming through the decking material if it's exposed. So it just makes it prohibitive in one way or the other. Either I'm doing a ton of labor on the front side of the house to repair it. I'm sorry. I've got 2 microphones.
There we go.
Either I'm doing a lot more labor on the front side of the building in order to repair it and make it match what is existing.
Hang on one second, Mr. Roberts. So we've got this mic thing going on here, and for one brief second, he was loud and clear. Try that.
How about that? Is that good?
There you go. Okay.
Sorry.
We could hear you, but I could tell that the
Sure.
Attendees, other people here, could not hear what you're
Sure.
saying. This is great. Good. Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not enthusiastic about enclosing rafter tails because they are such a important visual element of this type of house. I'd like to, know what some other people think, but I really wanted to hear what you had to say about that because I do appreciate that there are issues with wood rot and then you're putting the addition on and how you integrate all of that kind of stuff too. And, I wouldn't mind, can we see the proposed addition? We had that slide with the 2 views on it. All right, so if you can just, now that we can hear you, just very quickly walk us through what you were saying about the rafter tails, why you have to cover them up because of that, the addition you're putting on there and the roof line.
Okay, the addition, wow, that's loud. The addition creates one long piece of cornice, one long cornice line, all continuous, that runs right up to the narrow offset. There's a single window kind of out of center in that narrow offset. So if I maintain the open tails right back to the back corner of the house right there, and then the addition starts up, and there's going to be a point where I've got open tails and then I've got a closed-in cornice because, and like I said, to duplicate that in the back starts getting prohibitive because you have to build the roof twice, so to speak. because the underside decking is exposed. The underside decking is 3/4 of an inch thick, which means I have to add another layer of material to that on the exposed tail part and then fur out all the rafters up the hill in order to make the thickness match. So I keep adding steps. So one way or the other, if I repair the tails that are existing, I've got to take apart the edge of the roof to do so in order to make it match. Or else I can just have one, like
Right.
they've repaired it in the past, they just stick a piece of wood right beside it and keep going. That's why we're,
Yeah, no, I understand, thank you. Are there some other questions for Mr. Roberts?
Can you go back to the picture of down the side of the house, the one previous to this one? Because it looks like on the right side by the driveway, you've got the same rotten wood down the driveway as well. That's not the back, right? That's
No,
down
ma'am.
the side by the driveway.
that's the western side of the house. And that same thing and that same detail, what's going on is that for whatever reason, whether it was not maintained or not painted or whatever, it got to a point where the top of the rafter, the very top of the rafter will rot out underneath the decking. So you can't just cut the bottom off of it. You can't just cut a little piece. You can't cut it off at the wall because then you made a weak spot in the overhang. That's what's holding up the roof decking. So it becomes prohibitive. You've got to take it all apart and get inside the house in order to recreate the rafter to get it back in its original location. So again, I understand the design detail, but at some point, it just becomes prohibitive. They're old houses. I've torn apart a bunch of them, so.
And also, while you're still there, would you put the carport back up one more time and tell me exactly it's going to be down this driveway? Is it in the back of the house, in the rear of the house? Will you show me that one
Yes,
more
ma'am.
time while we're,
Jonathan, can you show me? Yeah, there you go.
okay,
The proposed carport is, and it's freestanding, not connected to the house,
okay,
and it is standing there.
okay.
So completely in the backyard, not attached because, of course, a whole different set of things that go into that. There are some photographs that I sent Jonathan that he has that are with that show that design completed. That's what we're looking to build. That's 9 Oakwood. I built that, I don't know how many years ago, but same design. Roof pitch won't be that steep because that house, it's matching that house. The house at number 2 is on a 6 pitch, so everything will match. And what we're proposing is that the eave height of the carport is at the same eave height as the house. So the whole thing is nothing profiles above the house. Everything is kind of matching visually, everything you see kind of following the same eave profile and the eave height all the way around the building.
Thank you for asking about that. Are there any other questions for Mr. Roberts at this time? All right, if you have a seat, if we have any other questions, we'll bring you back to the podium. I'd like to open up the floor to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak regarding this application? And please give your name and your address for the record.
My name is Kelly Fitz. I'm at 19 Audubon Place. I agree with you, Dr. Pagani, that enclosing the rafter tails on this house would change the appearance of this house tremendously. And so the goal to me in the historic districts is that we are preservationists. We are preserving the historic districts. It's unfortunate that there may be some rot. It's unfortunate that maybe this needs some more repair than what these people anticipated. But by changing the rafter tails and enclosing that as I'm assuming an enclosed soffit, it changes the entire appearance of that house. And so I hope that you will not approve that. I also question the little skinny windows at the top of the building up there. And back to the rafter tails, the reason that he's saying that the rafter tails, one, I know they're in bad condition, but he's also saying that this extension is in line with the rest of the house. You could put a little step back in the addition so that it's a little bit shallower than what is drawn and not in line with the house. And in that way, you might make a change right there and get into putting in an enclosed soffit or something different. So that would give you a clear break between the existing house and an addition. So for the future, we would know kind of the history of this house. I question the lack of windows on the east side. It looks like there's a pair of double doors, if y'all can go back to that. I don't know what that is. That elevation right there, although it's not facing the street, is really unpleasant. And I don't know if it needs windows, but it's really kind of very odd. If that's a closet or a bathroom or whatever, I feel like there could easily be windows put in to that back addition to make it look much more in keeping with the rest of the houses, not only this house, but in the historic districts. And then my other question is the carport and the driveway to it. Can you show that, please? So you've got a driveway that goes straight back and ends, is that correct? On the left side? And then you've got a carport that is not connected to that driveway, is that correct? How does one get from the driveway over to the carport if that actually is going to be used as a carport? And if it is going to be used as a carport, you will have to pave the backyard. And I think that gets into the restrictions on being able to pave more than a certain percentage of the backyards in the historic districts. So I hope that you will consider those things before you make your decision. Thank you.
I do have a question about that as well. Procedurally, are we able to bring the applicant back so we can ask a couple questions related to public comment? Or should we close public comment and then?
Let me see if I can get my microphone to work. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I think it's the regular order of the commission throughout all of the hearings that the commission has to ask questions as questions arise or the commissioners have other questions to invite the applicant back up.
So we can
allow
invite
them
the
to
applicant
address
back
the
up right
questions.
now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Roberts, could you come up for just a quick second? It was something that I had been thinking about too, and it left my mind, but the driveway to the carport, can you explain that transition from the driveway to the carport with a car on what's happening there?
We are aware that you can only cover a certain percentage of the backyard. It has to be uncovered. If we pour concrete back there, then that would take up, the percentage would be beyond 35% paved.
Right.
So there are some alternatives to that, and we're investigating that. There are some alternatives to paving that don't count as paving because they're porous. There are spots in the historic district where there is gravel, there's grass pavers. We're just investigating that in order to find a way to accommodate that driving surface. We just haven't found one that kind of works for all of the things we're trying to do as far as the driving surface goes. But there are alternatives to that rather than concrete, which is why it's not drawn with concrete right there. The skinny windows, if you look at the picture that I showed you of the car park design at number 9 Oakwood Court, that's the same window. They've been approved in the district before, and it is in a bathroom and in a closet, which is why we're not putting full view windows in there. And noting that the addition from the east side is offset from the east line of the building by 14, 15 feet. So as far as sight line from the street, you're not going to have a sight line that shows you the east exposure of the addition to the building as far as windows and doors. But it's because it's in a bathroom and a closet. It's the location of the atrium windows up high.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Any questions for Mr. Roberts regarding those issues that came up? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in either support of or opposition to this application? And we've received no submitted public comments, so I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor up to discussion by commission members. So several things to consider with this application, folks. Discussed a number of them.
Yeah, I'm fairly well in agreement with the points as outlined by Ms. Fitz. I do think that the idea of pushing that addition in a little bit so that it's not on the plane is maybe a reasonable accommodation in order to preserve the original tails of the house, which I think probably can be repaired, while not requiring them to go to the expense of that building process on the addition. And I think also our guidelines talk about it being okay for there to be a distinction between the original structure and the addition. So I think that's a thought process. But in terms of the tails, to me, it just seems this is a craftsman style house. It's in the historic district. It was like that, when it was purchased, and it's an architecturally contributing feature. It is significant to the home. It is visible from the street. It is, we've heard some rot. Frankly, there's not a lot of evidence before us about how much rot that it's, I don't feel like the case has been made. This just can't be done. And so, there may be some expense, but that is expense that I would think would have been considered upon engaging in this and then finally, I think the backyard situation, I don't think it was done in bad faith at all. I think it was completely honest. I really appreciated the candor of the response. But to say we didn't put a driveway in because it's going to violate your rules, I think, thank you for being candid, but I do believe you're going to find a way for a car to get from the driveway to the carport, and I'm not just going to overlook that issue. So to me, and the plans are not very detailed as it is. There are several issues that would lead me maybe to think that this one just needs some big picture reconsideration. But obviously, want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Yep.
I'm gonna parrot what you said, Joseph. I feel like the rafter tails are a defining feature of a craftsman style home. The curb appeal and the view from the public right of way make it such that this is just a simplistic house in design. To take away the rafter tails from this design seems like taking away a lot of the character of the house. I'm also a little bit confused about the profile of the garage if the gables face east-west, or like how we're looking at it from the street. I would assume that that's the case, since you would have to approach the carport from the left side of the house. And so you would have the front of the house where the gable faces the public right-of-way, and then you have a juxtaposed profile of the carport, although it's unclear to me if you can actually see the profile of the carport from the street.
That's a good point.
I echo the sentiment about the rafter tails, and I mean, the guidelines clearly say related to trim and ornament, maintain historic trim and ornament in place, replace missing original trim and ornament with like-kind materials whose designs, proportions, and finishes match those of the original. So, I mean, that seems pretty clear to me about that particular item.
Anybody else like to say anything?
I agree. I would like for you to put the picture of the house back, the front photo of the house back up one more time, just while we're
I would note, one thing that, just as a suggestion, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but, one issue was the maintenance, and, whether that rafter tail could potentially be recreated in a material that requires less maintenance might be something that the property owner would consider.
Anything else? I mean, just to summarize the comments, and I do agree, I think there are aspects of this application that need to be more fully considered. I'm not comfortable with the driveway and then the carport issue and having things in limbo there. But the rafter tails, as I mentioned earlier, are really an important part of visual part of this house and this structure. And I think there are solutions around that. There just needs to be a little bit more consideration given to that in how the addition can, I'm trying to look at you, Mr. Roberts, there, in order to do what you want to do with this house, to give the addition, but also preserve those rafter tails. And I think there are solutions there. It's not for us to tell you necessarily, but I think you know how to work around these kinds of things. And I do appreciate how difficult it is in dealing with older homes, with the original construction and fixing certain things. I do feel, I agree with my colleagues here, that the rafter tails, as they stand, should be preserved and continue as part of this house. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to this? And that's all I just want to tell you. I just couldn't see you because of the podium. So, commission members, any more discussion, or shall we move toward a motion?
I would be inclined, as we sometimes do, to see if the petitioner is interested in requesting a continuance to address a lot of these issues with a lot more detail.
Mr. Roberts, would you be interested in continuing this application?
I think if we could address the specifics of where the hangup is, if the cornice, if that's not going to be approved in the future, then it does me no good to continue that. We can accommodate that in the backside of the building by shortening the overhang 6 inches at the point where the addition goes to. It will maintain everything, all the original part of the house, and run the addition as it was designed in the hardy siding and hardy cornice, which is approved and used all over the district. And I understand that. And I understand the concern. You know, I've waded through this stuff so much.
Right.
As far as the driveway and car park goes, the driveway is not connected. I mean, the car park is not connected to the building, so it doesn't, again, interfere with the addition itself because it's not a connected piece. If you told me that you said, hey, you can put the addition on the house, but you can't change the cornice, and then we have an issue with the car park, then I would say, completely understood. Can we proceed with the addition as designed? We'll change the offset in order to accommodate the look. Because again, it's my aesthetic that I don't want to have a mismatch that's in the same line, not because of any sort of guideline that you guys have.
Right,
because we
right.
wouldn't be maintaining anything.
Right.
So, and I completely get it. I'm not naive to that. If we could move forward with the addition, because again, we're about to get into the time of year when the weather would be great, it'd be good to go ahead and get it built. We'll strike the carport and readdress that when we address the driveway issue and the cornice issue. I'll strike that. That's not going to hang me up as far as putting the addition on the back of the house, knowing full well that there is agreement that the addition to one of the buildings in the district can differentiate between the new building and the addition and the existing building. So all of those things would be accommodated if you say that you don't want me to change the cornice. I completely get that. I'm not gonna. That's not a hill to die on. The car park in the back that's not connected to the driveway. If there's an issue because you don't see it connected to the driveway, understand that. Again, it's not part of the addition. It's a separate structure. It's not connected to the house. The addition alone, as it is everything about it meets the guidelines. Design materials already approved, windows already approved, doors already approved, siding, everything matching the house. So I would ask that that be considered in that way, because there's many times we've come in here and there were certain parts of an application that didn't fit the guidelines, or that weren't, somebody didn't like it, and that's cool, we struck that part off of it, but not kill the whole project.
Right, we've had situations like that in the past. That's certainly true, where
Right.
one thing we can work it out. The thing is here, I'm not sure I fully understood exactly what you were suggesting here. And, part two of that, as we talk about keeping those exposed rafter tails as is, right? And then having that addition with the concerns with sightlines and continuity and all that kind of stuff. City staff has to have something to work with when they go back to see, what we need to see something that for us to approve it. Like, what exactly are you going to do? How are you going to manage this? And then they need to have something that's concrete so that they can go back when work is done to make sure it matches what's approved. So, got a lot of noise going on tonight. So I'm not sure, and I'd like to sort of ask the city attorney, as we're talking here, we have an applicant who wants to get moving with the project and is willing to make some adjustments. But the thing is, as we're talking about the addition here, preserving rafter tails, that transition to the addition, I'm not fully clear on exactly what you're going to do, and I don't have a visual of that. So I'd like to know what the city attorney has to say about this.
Yes, ma'am. And the comment that you just made is the comment that I would make to the commission, that we have had situations in the past where there's been an application that's come that had multiple elements in it, and some elements, did meet the design guidelines, others didn't. And so the application would be approved as to certain elements and denied as to others. This one, it sounds like we have a situation where the applicant is open to making changes in what they're proposing to do in order to make sure that they stay within the guidelines, and that's good and positive. The issue is having something to where you guys know what you would be approving as a commission, and more importantly, that the buildings division, when they go and inspect the work, that they have something that they can be able to match what was done up against what was proposed. I think that's the concern that I would have with heavily modifying the application on the fly tonight while we're here. I do think Mr. Cox made an interesting suggestion, which would be to continue the application for a month, allow for the amendment and the clarification for the board, for the commission to consider at next month's meeting. I know that does push things back a month for the applicant on their work, but it gets it back in front of the commission and you guys for a decision, and probably the quickest way that we have of getting it back to you.
I know that that's not exactly what you wanted to hear, Mr. Roberts, but I think that may be the best solution in the interest of everything going on here with this house.
Yeah, I'm at your will. I don't get to vote.
Well, so you're amenable to having us continue this application until next month?
If that is my only option, then yes, ma'am.
I think that's the best option. I think it's the best option, given what the commission members have been saying, the input that we've had, and just that transition just has to be well thought of. The transition from the original, current existing house to that addition just needs to be well thought out, well laid out, and well presented so that we understand exactly what's going on here.
Let me just ask one question so that I can, when I come back, bring you
Sure.
information that will describe that for you. What is the guideline that says how that transition from new materials on addition that can be different, how does it meet the old house? Is there any kind of guideline or something that I can look at that will give me something and kind of indicate to me what we're looking for? Because I can, and I'm not being crass, but I can build literally anything that you want me to build, but I'm curious as to how that works as far as the guideline stipulates for me to, because it says in the guidelines.
In the
that We
guidelines,
can change material and design on an addition on the building.
you know, Mr. Morris had quoted a section of the guidelines, I think he's looking for it right now, where it's okay to delineate between the new part and the original part. You want it compatible and harmonious and not a glaring change, but it is okay for you to have the rafter tails in the original part and have some transition or change to that new section where you're not putting the rafter tails in.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the guidelines are kind of, they talk about, yeah, not detracting, delineating but not detracting. I mean, I think brass tacks, and I think you have to go to the city for more guidance. But, you know, if you're going to do some sort of a soffit, trying to do a good made material, maybe with some details or something, so that, you know, the general appearance of quality down the side of the house doesn't change that much, although we see a difference in building.
Okay, so, and
Process.
I'm just making sure I'm hearing you right. Are you suggesting that the addition would have open tails, would have the same curvilinear design?
I think what we're trying to say is not necessarily. It would not necessarily have to do that, but, you know, it just needs to look nice and not detract from the front section, and probably needs to be set back. And we'd love to probably have your ideas as to what would be the best way to accomplish that.
It essentially says not to obscure or damage significant architectural features, ornament, or detail. And essentially, there's a lot of general language that says that it needs to be compatible. So I think that leads some interpretation that as long as there's a line that delineates between where the addition is and where the original stops, then making that change should be, it would be agreeable to me. I don't want to speak for the other commission members.
No, but I think you're right on that. And you had said yourself, Mr. Roberts, early on, when you were discussing about enclosing those rafter tails, you had said the way the design is or the plan is right now to have that continuous line down the side of the house, it would look weird. Having, you know, rafter tails and then no rafter tails. It would look weird. You're right. So there is a solution, just it takes a little bit of time figuring it out on how to maintain those rafter tails and that integrity of the front part of the house. Do what you want to do with the back end. You know, we had some public comment where there was a suggestion of perhaps a little bit of an indentation of that addition in the back to offset it a little bit. Right. So it does say here is something that's been added on, but it's compatible, it's harmonious with what's there now.
Okay.
And we know you can do this.
And Mr. Roberts, we'll work with you on this, city staff will.
Is it? And please, and I say this to all applicants too, work with city staff when you have questions as they come up, because they're really good to sort of help lead you along and really get this application as strong as possible when you come back. So I take it that you have requested a continuance on this. And so then we have a motion, we make a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to continue this. Do I have a second? I have a second. All right, let's vote. Let's start with Dr. Davis, please.
Yes.
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 All right, so Mr. Roberts, we look forward to seeing you next month. All right, your application has been continued. And if you have any questions, please make use of city staff to help you along with this. All right, thank you.
All right, next case is HPC 923, Jason Mathers petitions for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish and reconstruct an accessory structure. This is at 35 University Circle in the University Circle Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property, as well as an aerial view of that location. This is a primary structure view from the street. Here we have the adjacent northern and western property. So this proposal is to replace the existing garage with a new garage. So it's going to be located in the same footprint. Again, here we have the view of the primary structure. We have a few images of the deteriorated garage, just showing the current condition of that garage. So here we have the proposed elevations from each side. As you can note, there is a window, there's a current window on the existing garage, and they're proposing to keep that window, place it in the new garage with a new door, a new double door. Currently, that garage has one door that you see there. They're proposing just to have that double wide garage door. And then here we have the existing dimensions of that structure. So they did recently receive ZBA approval to rebuild it in the same footprint. There's a concrete slab. They're essentially going to rebuild this new garage on that same slab. The materials are for hardy plank siding, roofing to match the architectural roof already there on the primary structure. The steel garage door and the existing garage window will be used on the new structure. And then here we have those material spec sheets for the siding and the garage door. And then here are our applicable design guidelines for a detached garage. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have the petitioner's representative here to speak here in person.
Can you show us a view of that existing window one more time, please? Do we have it?
It's covered up by the fence.
Okay.
But it's a wood window, and I believe the petitioner can speak on that window.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking through the packet and I didn't see it. Any other questions for Mr. Bowen?
In terms of the footprint, I was just a little confused. Is it go right back in the same footprint?
It's going to go right back in the same footprint. I believe they are proposing an increase in a foot elevation-wise to fit a larger vehicle in there, which I believe.
Same,
So it could,
same footprint?
Same
The roof line runs the same as it is right now?
correct.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Let me invite the applicant to come up to the podium, please, and state your name and your address for the record,
Stephen
please.
Stroud, 1401 Pinnacle Park Lane, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 35406.
Thank you. So is there anything else you can tell us about the application? I'm kind of curious about the windows, if you can just tell us a little bit more about those.
I couldn't hear what you said, excuse me.
Oh, can you tell us a little bit about the window that's there?
There's an
since-
existing window there. It's a double window with 302 single windows put together. And to maintain the structure and the look of that window, we're wanting to take that window out and put that window back. The purpose of this is the building's rotting, the window is still fine, and it's really impossible to repair. And then for the garage door height, the garage was built before many SUVs and anything like that, so you can only get a car in there. So it's only about 6'6" total height, and we're trying to get that garage door to a minimum of 7. But the window has no damage or anything, it's fine.
It's great, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Stroud? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? All right, and we've had nothing submitted, so I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion by commission members. Fairly straightforward, right? Same footprint, little slight difference in height. Reusing the window, which is nice. Materials are all approved.
It looks like the existing structure is in substantial disrepair.
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe we've actually approved some other freestanding garage replacements on University Circle in the fairly recent past, so I have no issue with this.
Same. I see no difference other than height, and looks good to me.
Does it sound like we're moving toward a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
I have a
Second.
motion to approve, and I have a second. All right, any other discussion before we move? All right, so the motion is to approve as presented this evening, beginning on my right, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Ms. Stroud, your application has been approved. Should anything change, please see city staff before you move forward on that, and good luck with your project.
Next case is HPC 1023. Cheryl Taggart petitions for a certificate of appropriateness This is for the construction of a pergola at 2500 Glendale Gardens in the Glendale Gardens Historic District, Council District 2. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. Here we have a view of the primary structure from the street. This is the adjacent northern property and the adjacent eastern and southern properties. So the proposal is for a cedar pergola in the rear yard. There will be concrete footers to hold the pergola into the ground. So again, here we have a view of the primary structure. And this is the site plan. You can see the pergola is located within the appropriate setbacks for accessory structures located in the rear yard. This is an image of what the proposed pergola would look like, the cedar pergola. This is kind of a more dimensioned view of that proposed pergola. And the materials are cedar pergola. So here we have the applicable design guidelines. We did not receive any public comment in support or opposition to this application, and we do have the petitioners here to speak in person.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen? All right, thank you very much. Let me invite the applicant to come to the podium, please. And we'll need you to state your name and your address, please.
Cheryl Taggart, and the address is 2500 Glendale Gardens.
Thank you.
Tuscaloosa.
Ms. Taggart, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your application?
No, it's just that we bought the house was one of the houses on Glendale destroyed, and it was rebuilt in 2013. And it's on a very large lot, and aesthetically, you know, there's one huge magnolia tree in the backyard, and when we purchased the house in 18 from the person that rebuilt it, we put like $6,000 worth of, well, we put about $112,000 into it, but we put like $6,000 worth of trees in the backyard. So visually, I think from the road, and there's also an oak right beside them, I don't think you could even see it from any area except maybe the neighbor to the right of us. There is a small opening where the cedars didn't cover it. But so really, I don't think you would be able to see it from the, it's really to add some, it's a huge backyard with it being
Yes.
7/10 of an acre. You know, we need something aesthetically to make it look better.
Are there any questions for Ms. Taggart? Well, thank you very much. If
Thank
anything
you.
comes up,
Thank
we'll bring you back. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? All right, let me close the floor to public comment, and let's move to discussion and motion with commission members.
Move to approve as presented.
Is there
Second.
and a second? I have 2 seconds, that's great. All right, so the motion is to approve the application as presented this evening, and I have 2 seconds on this one. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote. Dr. Davis?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Ms. Taggart, your application has been approved. Should anything change from what you submitted and from what we reviewed this evening, please see city staff before you proceed, but good luck. Yeah. And let the record show that Mr. Morris is recusing himself from the hearing.
All right, moving on to HPC 1123, Patrick Agee petitions for a certificate of appropriateness. This is for exterior alterations in addition to the primary structure at 908 Queen City Avenue. This is in the Druid City Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. Here we have a view of that primary structure at this location. This is the adjacent northern property, adjacent southern, and the adjacent western property. So there's multiple proposals, so we have them listed by the elevations side, north, south, east, west. We're just going to go through those, but I have the plans that really outlines what's being replaced, what's being removed, so we'll go through those a little more in detail with the site plans. So the north elevation, removing asphalt shingles, the existing roof overhang. They are planning to install steel frame balcony, installing windows, proposed new storefront gazing. All of this information is clearly listed on the site elevations that show it a little bit clearer. Here we have those proposed changes to the south elevation and the west elevation. Again, removing the asphalt shingles, removing the existing roof overhang, proposing hardy lap siding, as well as painting the existing painted brick that's on the primary structure. And then finally, the east elevation, where again, you see some of those similar removals for the asphalt shingles in the roof as well. So again, here we have the primary structure. We have an additional view from the side of the primary structure, and then the opposite side of the structure. So getting into the site plan, on the northeast corner, northwest corner, there is a proposed addition located in this section here. They are also proposing a new entryway. As will be noted on later elevations, they're moving an entryway to be more in line with the sidewalk. So here we have the west elevations, and like we mentioned earlier, just highlighting some of those changes. So removing the asphalt shingles, proposing hardy lap siding. They are also proposing to remove, we'll go back to the previous elevations, they're removing and relocating the HVAC units. That'll be now screened in this location here. Proposing to screen that with hardy lap siding. Moving on to the south elevation, so again, some of those similar changes, removing asphalt shingles, proposing hardy lap siding. This section here is that addition, proposing to go back matching brick. You can start to see the balcony here in this section, which is noted on these next few elevations. So here we have the existing northern elevation, and this is where they're going to be changing the entry door area here. They're going to be moving that, replace new storefront glazing. So here is that proposed elevation. You can start to see the balcony come into play. So steel columns, railing, steel frame balcony. Below you see the proposed storefront glazing and steel columns. They're also proposing to go back with fiberglass exterior doors, and then the matching hardy lap siding up top. Finally, we have the eastern elevation where you can more clearly see the balcony with those Anderson vinyl clad windows. I know there's a lot changing here, so I'm going to let it sit just to see exactly what's existing versus what is being proposed. Again, all the materials are relatively the same for the proposed. The hardy lap siding, the brick that is going to remain.
Can you go back to the north elevate? There we go.
The proposed.
There we go. That's it. That's what I want to see. Thanks. Okay.
Just to point out, this section here that you see, those new doors, that would be included on that proposed addition.
So in a nutshell, with what we're seeing here, that mansard roof is being taken off the shingle. Essentially, they're opening it up to have a balcony on that second floor, height staying the same. We're moving that door on the north elevation because it has to do with ADA accessibility, right? Code stuff. And then we've got that addition there on the south side.
On the south side.
Got
that's
it.
Correct. And we can go back and show those again, and the door is to be more in line with the sidewalk. I believe it's off of 9th Avenue. So the materials, hardy plank lap siding, metal roof, fiberglass door, and Anderson vinyl clad windows. We have the material spec sheets for the siding, for the roof, for the storefront glazing, as well as those windows. And this is for that fiberglass door. And then here we get into the applicable design guidelines related to alteration of its structure, windows, entrances and doorways, and the roof. We did receive some public comment in opposition to this application, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
And as we talk about roof materials, we're talking about those overhangs, right? The overhangs for the roof, the metal?
Correct.
Then nothing's changing on the top.
I'll let the petitioner confirm
Okay.
that. I'm not exactly sure, but for that proposed balcony overhang section,
Okay.
yes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bowen?
The window material, the vinyl clad, can you go back to Monarch M? That's something we have approved before. I think.
Well, and Monarch M cells aren't being manufactured anymore, but we have approved, all sorts of materials. But vinyl clad we have approved. Well, thank you for making that clear. That was a complicated application, so thank you very much for that. Let me invite the applicant to come up to the podium, and please state your name and address for the record.
Patrick Agee, 11077 Telmar Drive, Northport, Alabama.
Well, thank you, Mr. Agee. Is there anything else you can tell us or you'd like to tell us about your application?
So I'd be happy to explain to you what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So this will be my third such project in the historic district. So my wife owns Swag at the corner of Greensboro and 6th Street. And then a partner and I just bought a duplex in Deering Place. And then this building here at Queen City and 8th Street. So I tell you all that to let you know that I think we're a good neighbor, and I appreciate your consideration for what we're trying to achieve here. So two-story building. A lot of people didn't even know it was two-story building because of the mansard that was up there. It was just the shingle, I guess exposed shingle or whatever you'd like to call it. So the upstairs lends itself to redevelopment, and so what we're trying to do is create a retail space. On the bottom, we're actually creating two because of the topographical changes. The right side sits up probably about 3 feet higher than the left side, and so with that in mind, we've kind of hashed it out to where we could have a tenant in the left and then a tenant in the right. And then with the on-site parking, we think it lends us to residential use upstairs. And we think putting some natural light in upstairs will only enhance the appearance of this building for what I consider to be a great location in downtown Tuscaloosa.
And you're not changing the roof, the flat roof. You're just taking the shingles off the mansard roof and...
Yes, ma'am. We're just pulling the mansard off. The roof will stay as it currently is. Okay. It'll be flat. I don't know exactly what material. I think it may be EPDM or something like that, some kind of rubber roof.
So the siding is all the CMU that's already there, brick and hardy lap?
Yes, sir.
There's a lot going on with this
And
application.
the awnings, what is the metal? Is that copper?
It'll be metal. I don't want it probably black or something that is keeping compatible with
a metal roof product. Okay.
You know, we want to tie this in nicely once it's,
So is that like a standing seam, sort of a?
Yeah, it was sort of typical overhang that we've seen before with that enclosed fasteners.
Right.
the drawings indicate it's a wood structure wrapped in the metal seam that's the approved material for
Right.
here.
What's the material that the columns are, or the, the sort of the faux columns, what are they made of?
Steel?
I would suspect there'll be steel beams, steel
Oh, I guess,
columns.
yeah, they're holding that, okay. Right.
Steel columns.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Agee right now?
I would read it, but I can't see it very well. so I'm
Oh, that's
sorry.
okay, that's okay. I'll tell you what, we don't have any more questions for you right now. So I invite you to have a seat, and if we need to, we can bring you back if something else comes up. So we do have some public comments submitted. If you want to just reiterate what we have, how many, and the nature of them?
Sure, yeah, there was one public comment submitted that questioned the height of the structure.
Okay.
As if the structure was changing.
And it was in opposition to
Correct.
the, okay, thank you. And just the one submitted. All right. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to this application? And I invite you, Mr. Miller, to come on up. And if you would state your name and your address for the record, please.
Ted Miller, 1918 9th Street, 35401. Thank you for this hearing, for the opportunity to speak. It is a complex project, and so I hope I don't have too much to say. So there are several points. These concern the balcony's incompatibility, the rhythm of the roof lines in and around the block, and some other things I hope you'll take into consideration for purposes and that speak to your guidelines. Most of the structures surrounding this building do not have balconies, and most of the small-scale commercial buildings are single-story, and the majority are single-tenant businesses. Those structures do not have balcony. Those structures that do have balconies in our immediate neighborhood are purely residential, not mixed residential and commercial. That's not our district's building style. That's more downtown. This project proposes a balcony above a commercial structure in a building zoned commercial, not residential. It's not a fit for a number of reasons, and it could impose some serious costs on the district and especially its residents. The neighborhood's existing balconies look very different from the one that's proposed for a variety of reasons. Some, like the back of the Warner House's balcony, overlook a backyard. Some, like the house on the corner of 9th and 20th Avenue, are enclosed by substantial roofs that overhang the balcony floors, and they're typically surrounded by heavy pillars and railings and/or opaque walls built of wood or brick. You can see the roof lines of these structures from the street, or look at the apartments on the block on 8th Street. And again, you'll find balconies that are much more enclosed, affording both the residents who live in these structures greater privacy and lessening the likelihood of their neighbors inadvertently looking upon the residents while they're enjoying their balcony. The balcony proposed as an addition to this building is minimally enclosed. It merely uses thin steel rails and columns, which will diminish the already inadequate parking for this structure, and yet it adds 2 residential apartments and multiplies the number of storefronts by a factor of 3. It looks out and can be seen from 3 largely unobstructed directions and makes no accommodation for those who will be nearby who might not want to have what amounts to a permanent outdoor elevated stage. There are places in Tuscaloosa where people like to and can live their lives out loud and elevated. We don't think that is the character of this historic district. And adding this structure would change the character. The difference is especially noteworthy. Am I out of time? Or should I?
Out of time. I'll let you finish this last thought, though.
Okay. Yes, what will be my last thought? I think that if you were to look at, for example, at the roof lines of the houses going to the north, you'll see that those roof lines, you see asphalt shingles. And while the present building's roof line or mansard roof may not be a winner and beautiful in everyone's view, there is still a sort of continuation among the two-story buildings of exposed asphalt shingles. And this would disrupt that with just, the out front balcony. If you look to the south, it's just one-story storefronts. So there's a rhythm disruption. I have other points, but I don't have any more.
Well, thank you very much. No, we appreciate you taking the time to delineate all these points for us. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I understand we have some others who would like to speak. And please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Anna Jacobs Singer. I live at 903 20th Avenue, downtown.
All right, Ms. Singer, thank you very much. And so what would you like to have us know about this?
Well, the back of my house, and particularly my driveway, backs up to this structure, which, by the way, has a back wall that is a concrete block. And I don't see any plan to make that more beautiful. But it is right on the property line.
And I think, can you get a little closer to the microphone just so we
Okay.
can hear you? I know the people in attendance can't quite hear you.
This west wall or back wall
Yes.
is right on the property line. And I would think that if they're making major changes to this building, that they really have an obligation to move it back. I don't know how far, but some feet. Also, like Mr. Miller, I find the overall design of this bad, frankly. And the side porch, which was built on, is just about flush with the sidewalk. There are all kinds of code violations in a way that I think need to be considered. I don't think it's your purview to do that. I know that's planning and zoning, but I have a strong objection to what's being proposed.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, and you are right. We don't deal with the code violations. We're governed by those design guidelines. But we do appreciate, we do appreciate hearing that. But, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in support of or opposition to the application?
Kelly Fitz, 19 Audubon Place. I appreciate the level of drawings that were done for this because you can actually see what's going on to some extent. I'm going to point out a few things for you that you may not know. One, I think the vinyl clad windows, we have, between me and the commission, I've decided, y'all may not, that the vinyl clad windows are not appropriate. Before, the PVC solid cell were approved, and at some point, I don't know where vinyl clad came in, but I do not particularly think they're very long-lasting or appropriate.
Right. Can we pause the timer for a second? Because I do want to ask Ms. Fitz something, and I don't want to use up her time for that. But it does have to do with the windows, and that's why I paused with the question about, I think it was Mr. Cox's question about the windows, because there was something, and we've been in conversation about windows and things. The Monarch M cells that are no longer being produced were a vinyl clad.
They were not a
They were
vinyl
not.
clad window.
They were a PVC.
They were a PVC solid. Imagine a piece of lumber that's like a 2x4, you can make a 2x4 out of solid PVC. It's not hollow. It acts just like wood. It can be treated like wood. It can be carved like wood. It can be molded like wood. And that was what a solid PVC is.
Well, and I think some of the confusion comes when you look at our applicable design guidelines where we see, and this is what the public works with, the Monarch M cells are stated as being a vinyl clad window
they are not.
here. And that's, and heard vinyl clad windows up here in our design guidelines. So I think there's
I
a,
don't know where that came from. But
there's a confusion there. Okay. I just wanted to ask you about that. Okay, we can start.
And there are still some PVC. I found out even today that there is a company that does still make the solid PVC windows. So they still are available. They're just not available from Monarch.
Right, thank you.
The big issue I have here is that we've got a building that frankly is not very attractive. I hate that mansard roof, and I don't mind, pulling that thing off and trying to make this, basically it's a square box, trying to make this box look better and trying to make it maybe fit into the historic districts better. The issues that I have truly are that this balcony that is proposed is being supported by posts. Those posts are falling into the existing parking lot. Now, I know y'all don't talk about parking, but by approving these posts and columns holding up this balcony, you are taking away the majority of the parking, of the majority of the parkability, I will say, of this lot. This lot, I spoke with someone today who has worked at this place for many years, and she said at the most, they can park 6 or maybe 7 cars in that lot. By putting posts 5 feet out from the building, you're getting rid of all that. And can I call your attention to the side? I don't understand something on the side of the building. It's on the north side. And I hate that I'm going to probably run over my time, but. So that awning right there that's going to be over the new doors, is that over the sidewalk? Does anybody know?
Madam Chair, that seems like would be a question that the
For the
commission may want to ask the applicant.
Yep. So we can ask that question. Anything else, Ms. Fitz? We can get a little list of questions going here.
Yes, I think that, this is a good first try at trying to make this building look better, but I just don't think it's there yet. The hardy plank, not one of my favorite materials, but I do hope that instead of this overhanging balcony, that we can find a way to put, like a Juliet balcony or something that's not going to affect the parking. But I really think that, I know that y'all don't talk about use.
Right.
But if you're affecting already limited parking in a neighborhood that's going to have heavy retail, imagine if this becomes a coffee shop or a place that has people come in to exercise. They may have 10 cars, and you can only park a few right now. And by putting these posts out there in the balcony, you're going to have fewer than that. And so I think this is inappropriate at this point and probably needs to get a good rethink.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? All right, Mr. Agee, would you mind coming back up? So a couple of questions have come up in public comment. I don't know if you were able to hear them, but let's start with one that's, I think, fairly simple. Let's start with the overhang of the door on that north elevation side. And the question was, is that overhanging onto the sidewalk?
As far as are we talking about just like the overhang of over the door?
Yep. How far is that going out? Can we see elevation of the terrible? It's the east side. Thank you. And so we can see what's happening there.
I would like, I got that, hold on.
It's on the north
Yeah, so it's
side.
right there. I can't quite tell from this drawing where this, can you show me where the edge of the sidewalk is?
It's the north elevation.
There we go, right there. Yep. So it looks like the overhang, maybe in,
I don't, so I've got a drawing here, but it doesn't show what the overhang is. It shows I've got about 2 feet between the, 2 to 3 feet between the existing sidewalk and the building.
okay.
So I've got, I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's about 30 inches.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a little bit of room, but I don't have a lot.
It
Okay.
really looks like to me, it's just to protect the doors right there, just to knock the rain from just hitting the doors or whatever, and somebody that just first steps out, maybe just for looks, really, and to
Yep.
protect
More-
those
yes, ma'am.
doors. Exactly.
Well, and then we had to move the entrance back up there for ADA, to comply with ADA to get in and out of that. part of
Right,
the building.
yeah, understood. And then the question came up too, we can see it from this plan, about the balcony and the steel posts that are supporting the balcony coming into the parking area. And I'm wondering, we've got this, let's take a look at this, but Mr. Bowen, if we can see, can we see the existing front elevation? I just, a photograph of it. And I just want to, and let's go around to the parking lot side.
So let's stay right there with that picture, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think our balconies are gonna be more than 3 or 4 feet off the front of the building. And I would suspect that that existing overhang is probably close to what we're gonna try to achieve. And it's my I'm going from memory here, but there may be a parking stop or two there, but I can't recall.
Well, it looks like landscaping too.
never mind,
Oh,
there's
wait,
another
no,
one.
there we go.
So you can actually see a little bit of where that overhang clears the bottom 4 feet there. And again, I'm sorry for not bringing something that I can read.
No, it's all right.
I would suspect that, we'll end up having to put a curb stop out there, but I don't know that it will. I don't know that the balconies are gonna impede any of the parking. The poles, that is.
Right.
I have a question. Is this the only side of this building where you feel like the balconies for the residences can be located? I guess I'm wondering, it seems like maybe there's a spot for a balcony on the, south side. Has there been any thought to putting the balconies on a different facade?
The only reason we use that side is because it faces back towards non-residential.
I got you.
You got everything to that would be east side. You're basically looking at Alabama Power's parking lot.
Right.
I personally think it's a huge transformation.
Well, and to echo public comment, as someone stated they appreciate trying to make the building look better. 'Cause that mansard section is just such a dark, heavy part of that building that you don't even realize that that's a second story. Are there any other questions for Mr. Agee at this time? All right, thank you so much.
I'll be happy to answer any more questions if you have.
If something comes up, we may bring you. It's such a detailed and complicated application. Thank you very much. All right, so public comment is closed. We've had a discussion with Mr. Agee. Let's open the floor to discussion by commission members.
Did we reach a decision about the vinyl clad windows?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. So let me ask city staff and city attorneys on this one. So we have vinyl clad windows in this proposal, and Ms. Fitz made a number of really good points on this. However, when I look at what our design guidelines say and what an applicant would look at, whether they're correct or not correct, that's what's out there. We've got vinyl clad window listed. Now we've got two brand names there. I don't know how to handle this vinyl window situation, because we have not approved vinyl windows, but we have approved vinyl clad. I mean, I need clarification, folks.
You're probably not going to like the answer that I'm
No, we'll just
able
bring
to
it.
give you. Because the best answer that I can give to the commission, number one, of course, I mean, I'm not a builder or an architect, so I don't know what a Monarch M-Cell or a Hurd vinyl clad or any of the other specific models are, and I couldn't tell you what is or is not comparable to those. I think the best answer that I can give to the commission is that the guidelines do identify Monarch M-Cell vinyl clad window, Hurd vinyl clad window, or equal window, I assume, that mimics wood. And it is to the commission to determine whether the window and the material that is being proposed by the applicant is an appropriate material or not.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't like that answer. So, Mr. Bowen, can we go to the spec sheets for a sec? Let's look at the windows of the spec sheets.
Can anybody tell me what the difference between a vinyl window and a vinyl clad window is?
Yeah.
Is it that it has a wood core? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, and solid vinyl is obviously solid vinyl, and is Ms. Fitz, come on up. Just give us a quick 2-minute tutorial on vinyl clad vinyl.
So we talked about the PVC earlier, which is a solid material that can be formed like wood and mimics wood. That is what the M-Cell was. For whatever reason, the guidelines are incorrect in how they describe it. And I hope that the city will fix that quickly and get that up to date. The vinyl windows are extruded vinyl. So if you look at a cross section through it, it's hollow. It may have some little stabilizing fins and what have you to make it stable, but it's a hollow section like a tube. And that's what a vinyl window is. Now, a vinyl clad window has a solid substrate behind it. It has probably wood with vinyl, a thin layer of vinyl on it. The problem with the vinyl clad windows is the trim that comes with it. The trim that comes with the vinyl clad windows is the tubes. It's the vinyl. It's molded vinyl. It has no wood substrate behind it. And so you end up with something that is a very inexpensive and kind of cheap product that's not going to withstand the test of time. If you look at the product manuals from window systems, you will see that all the, like if I don't know if y'all know what a brick mold is, excuse me if you do, but if you have a brick building and your windows are typically inset into that brick, and there's a piece of trim that goes around the whole window, and that's called a brick mold. In a vinyl window, that brick mold is a just extruded, hollow piece of plastic. So I don't
Thank
know
you.
if that helps.
Thank you for that. So the question is not so much about the windows, it's about the trim on the windows being extruded vinyl. I'm looking at this spec sheet. I don't see the materials listed, although we do know on the plan and the plans provided that it does state. Where is that on here, looking around?
Top left.
There we go. Vinyl clad window. I will say, as we get into these discussions about windows and things, we go back to our design guidelines. And we have approved vinyl clad windows. It's the extruded vinyl windows that we have not approved, right? You can see the inappropriate materials there. But we don't get into trim materials, and it's not stated in the design guidelines. And I think when we look at these applications, we have to look at what is in our design guidelines and what the applicant has access to in approving or not approving materials, right? And so to me, in reading what we have, and I really appreciate hearing as much as we've heard tonight about windows, to me, it just seems that we have vinyl clad windows that have been approved before, and that's in the proposal.
That we have what?
We have approved. It's the solid vinyl, as Ms. Fitz pointed out, are a real problem. That's the entire thing. And so what we have here is what we are guided by.
If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of switch gears and
Sure.
bring up something else. To me, I'm not, the only, what we're here to do is decide the appropriateness of this structure in this district. And to me, it boils down to second floor balconies fronting the street. On this, it's a commercial building, but on any building, and how that ties in with what else we see up and down Queen City, whatever those streets going east-west are, and the the other commercial stuff that's within the district down at College Park and across the corner there. It's all. And within the historic district, it's all one story or one story appearing. I think it's all one story. And here we have something that would be a second floor balcony, which is very common to the west, back around Government Plaza and obviously up and down University Boulevard. But it would be a different look. I mean, Alabama Power Building's kind of just an outlier, but it would be a different look than what we have through that area. And I don't really have a conclusion about it. It's just that's the only thing that is sort of giving me some pause in terms of how this flows with the neighborhood.
Well, one thing I'd say is that it's an existing two-story building. They're not proposing to add a story, which I think is a big part of this. I think that mansard roof as it exists now is not attractive. I think it's an improvement to sort of open up that front facade of that building.
Talking about the balconies, not the fact that it's a two-story, but having, it's not, windows with storefronts that we're going to have a second sort of, I don't know, the balconies to me is different than just a second story, but it may not be to anybody else.
Yeah, I don't have a real issue with that because we do have that in the broader district, maybe not in that same block, but it's an idiosyncratic block with, just mixed types of structures there. One thing I will bring up, just looking back at the record, we did approve vinyl-clad windows at last month's hearing. I wasn't present on that, but apparently that came up, so I just wanted to just let everybody know about that for a structure. Lots of lively discussion here. Any other thoughts?
To me, it just looks as though the material that they're using elsewhere, the steel and everything else, that they're not going to put an inexpensive window if they're going to the expense of making this project look this nice and putting this much money into it, that the windows should be good as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is just a minor detail, but Jonathan, can you go back to the storefront photo, the original one? If you can barely see it, but on the right side of the photo, you have this sort of window protection here. And if I'm interpreting the elevation properly, that same style that's on that window would be like the finials on the balcony. So that design, in a small way, already sort of mimics what's proposed, if albeit in a different application.
That's a great point.
Thank you for that. All right, do we have any thoughts on moving toward a motion with this? We've covered a lot of ground with this application tonight. It's been really good. I appreciate everybody's input. It appears to be a fairly thoughtful application. As we've heard stated by several this evening, it will make the building, they're trying to make the building look better, make it more attractive. The materials are all approved materials. I don't see any red flags with this one.
I don't either. I'll make a motion to approve
As presented?
as presented, yes.
All right, so there's a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second on
I'll
this?
second that.
All right, and I have a second. Is there any further discussion on this before we vote? All right, well, let's begin. Dr. Davis, please. Motion to approve as presented. That's the motion.
Yes.
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 All right, Mr. Agee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, 5 affirmative votes. Good luck with your project. Should anything change, please see city staff before you move forward. This is a tricky one, and you've had some interesting public comment here. Good luck with this project. You're welcome.
Going to grab Mr. Morris before we move on to the next case.
Right, yes, so we'll wait for Mr. Morris to return to the hearing. Here is Mr. Morris now.
Moving on to HPC 1223, Brian and Shane Yoakley petition for a certificate of appropriateness for material change to all windows. This is at 27 University Circle in the University Circle Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. This is an image of the primary structure. Here we have the adjacent northern and southern properties. So the proposal is to replace all current double-hung windows with aluminum-clad casement windows. Here again, we have the view of the primary structure. We have a couple of images just to show the up close of the existing windows. And the proposal is to replace all the existing windows on the primary structure. So again, these are aluminum-clad casement-style windows. And here are those material spec sheets for each window. And then here we have the applicable design guidelines for windows. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
This might be something you can't pull out off the top of your head. Have we ever had any application before that went from double-hung windows primarily to casement-style windows, do you know of?
Not to my knowledge, since I've been here, we have not.
I can't recall one, but, you know, it's not to say we haven't had one.
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen?
But the glazing patterns, and that's all the same?
That is going to be the same. I will note with it going from double hung to the casement, that may change the appearance of the window. But as far as the material and the light pattern, it should be exactly
Because of the sash?
Right,
Yeah, the meeting rail there. You're not going to have that heavier meeting rail on these casement
Go back
windows.
to an image that
Let's go to the front of the house.
you can kind of see it a little bit clearer.
Yeah, can you show us to the front of the house?
Sure.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Let me invite the applicant to come on up and please state your name and your address.
Brian Yoakley, 27 University Circle.
Well, Mr. Yoakley, we have a couple of questions about, first of all, my big question is why casement windows?
with the research we've done, they're more energy efficient and longer lasting than the double hung.
Okay. So the casement windows open out,
That's
correct? What happens with those wire boxes there on the second story of the house? Is there enough clearance for the windows, or?
We've already received clearance from from executive review to remove those.
Yep, the flower boxes up under the windows have been approved expedited to be removed.
Oh, okay. That answers one of my questions. Thank you.
But it wouldn't be a problem either way.
Okay.
From the window. Functionality wouldn't affect that. You can't tell it from that angle, but they're actually just below the window. That angle here looks like it is, but it's not.
Yeah, and you don't get the sense of the depth of those boxes either from here. I just wondered, but
the windows, the way they would open it, the box is really below the window level.
okay.
You're taking it from a ground, so it looks
Yeah,
different.
but the boxes are,
But
they're going to be
they're
gone.
coming
All
out.
right, all right.
They're in bad condition.
We're pausing because we don't deal with casement windows very often. And so we're just taking it all in. It will change the appearance a little bit, but you're keeping the light patterns, right?
The grid patterns, the
Yep.
window panes, everything will be exactly the same. The only difference is, where the sash in the middle is
Yes.
a little bit thicker.
Yep.
That's the only
Well, you're not gonna
difference
have-
that
right.
you would notice.
So you're replacing the window, but not all the,
All the trim will be the same.
okay. That's good to know as well. Thank you.
So all the trim, egress, all of that will remain all the same.
Okay.
You don't see it on these pictures, but, across the front of the house, all the windows are the same material, but around the side and back, we have all kinds of material. We have vinyl, we have, diagonal windows, so we're going to keep it all the same from the historical point of view. But somewhere along the way, they've been replaced with other things.
Right. So every single window.
Prior to my ownership.
Yeah, but every single window is going to casement. You're replacing every single window.
Right. In the
Got it.
same grill patterns that you see.
Yep.
With all of the historical windows.
Can we just take another little quick tour around the house and just see those windows, just so everybody's clear on this, in case there's a question about any of them?
I'm sorry.
We just want to look around the house. There's one window, I think there was just a single pane coming up in the back. There it is. So it's all just staying the same. Okay. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Yockley? No. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to any comments regarding this application? And we've had no submitted comments, so I will close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion by commission members. So the overall appearance will change slightly because of that meeting rail area with the double hung windows, but everything else is going to be staying the same. The the light pattern overall will stay the same. I appreciate that the applicant is being consistent in what they're doing around the house. They're all going to be unified, same material. So,
I don't, going from the double hung, it's probably normally what you see in a structure this age and style. So we're replacing it with a different window that has the same light pattern. If somebody else comes down and they want that level of detail, it could theoretically go back to a double hung window one day. I think overall, homeowner is, making a change that will benefit their use of the home and is, consistent with our guidelines.
right, thank you. The other thing is, just sort of piggybacking on what you just said, they are keeping all the trim, the original trim, and that's, I think, really important in how a window looks. We often forget about trim and trim profile and all of those sorts of things, and they're keeping that. So I think that's an important point. So does that mean we have a motion?
I move that we approve the
A
petition.
motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a second. All right. Let's vote, beginning on my right with Mr. Cox.
Yes.
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 All right, Mr. Yockley, your application has been approved. Good luck with your project, and should anything change, talk to city staff before you move forward. Good luck. And let the record show that Dr. Davis is recusing herself.
Moving on to the last case of the night, HPC 1323, Dakota Simpson petitions for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a gazebo on the property at 1507 13th Street. This is in the 13th Street Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. Here we have the view of the primary structure. This is the adjacent northern property and the adjacent western property. So the proposal is for a gazebo in the rear yard. So again, here we have the view of the primary structure. This is an image on the left side of what the gazebo would look like. On the right side is the image of the roofing materials. So roofing material here, construction of that gazebo on the left. Here we have the site plan, and this image shows what's currently existing. So a little bit of background about this application. Our Code Enforcement Division did go out and issue a stop work order for this proposed work until it received approval. So currently, this structure does not meet the appropriate setbacks. However, the petitioner has stated, and in his application, shown here, that structure from the edge of the platform, if approved, he is essentially asking to be approved for that 5 feet setback. So it would be moved. It would not be located where it's currently located. They have stated that they would move that to be in compliant with the setback regulations.
So what's the measurement right now as it stands?
Roughly 3 feet.
Okay.
And the materials are wood gazebo, wood lumber, and 28 gauge aluminum sheet roofing. So here we have the applicable design guidelines for roofs and for accessory structures. We did receive 3 public comment in opposition to the application, some of them referring to that it is closer or located within the not approved setback. And we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Okay. Yeah, you sort of read my mind on that, because I wanted to ask you specifically, with those submitted comments, were they in opposition to the gazebo period, or was it the location of it, or was it the materials? What are the specifics of each one?
Yeah.
So we've had 3.
Correct.
How many of them were in opposition only because of the location?
All 3 of them
Okay.
mentioned the location. Some of them mention specifically just the pergola in general.
So, how many of the 3 were against the pergola period?
I can double check.
Okay.
We have copies of the public
Okay.
comment.
I just
We
think
can
it's
double
important to
check
kind
that.
of tease out why we have opposition. You know, is it just location?
Sure.
Or is it because of larger issues with the pergola or gazebo, whatever, what are we calling it? Gazebo. The other thing is, if we go to the site plan here, the way this is drawn, it looks like this gazebo is, half the size of the house? It's hard to get a sense of the scale in looking at this hand-drawn gazebo. You were out at the site, right?
Yes.
And I don't know, I just want to get some feedback on that.
I have a question that goes along with that. The gazebo as constructed does not look like the picture of what the gazebo is going to look like nor does it look like it ever could. So I'm just confused.
Right, and that's something the petitioner
Okay,
can speak
yeah,
to. I
yeah.
do know that the reason why it's in this condition, whenever our code enforcement division went out, the petitioner stopped the work. He's not moved it until he got approval to continue that work. So that's why it hasn't changed since code enforcement went out there.
Okay.
So do you have any understanding about whether this wood platform is going to go away? I mean, it's not in the photo, or is that just something we need to ask the petitioner?
Right, so that is something that the petitioner stated that would be included into the application for, to have the platform and the gazebo on top. The specifics, I will let the petitioner speak.
And I guess there's a second photo. I think maybe I didn't see that before.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that was good, Mr. Cox. And the height of this thing, can you go back to do we have
The petitioner has confirmed the height, and I'll let him speak
okay.
to that as well.
So really, in short, what we're seeing here is an application that's not really complete because we are not getting the height of the post, we're not getting the pitch of the roof, we're not getting the height of the overall structure, correct? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, thanks. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bowen. So let me invite the applicant to come to the podium, please, and state your name and your address for the record.
Dakota Simpson, and it's 1507 13th Street.
All right. So, Mr. Simpson, lots of questions about this one. Some of it comes from the drawing that you see here. We don't get a sense of, because it's not drawn to scale, we don't get a sense of the size of the gazebo relative to the size of the house. We've got these numbers written on here, but we have no dimensions on the height of the posts. We have no sense of what's happening with the roof. We don't have the height of the overall thing. Like, there's nothing there for us.
Right.
How tall is this thing gonna be?
So the very top pitch of the roof will be at 10 feet. That's the top, and it'll be it has like a 3-inch pitch on both sides.
Okay, let's go to let's go with the submitted photograph of what it's going to look like for a second here. All righty, let's start with here. So the overall height, including the platform,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
10 feet.
From the ground to the top of the roof
Okay.
will be 10 foot at the top pitch.
Okay. And then how tall is the roof section?
The roof section.
Yep.
So the section like where the crown pitch is,
Yes.
it'll roughly be like 3 feet.
Okay.
So, and it'll come out to like 3.5 pitch on both sides.
Okay.
We have a hip roof, and then we also have a pitched roof.
Yeah, so at first when this happened, I didn't know it had to be done like this. So when I build the platforms, I build them at home, like that one. It was built a little bigger than what we thought it was going to be, so it's got to be trimmed down to size. But we build them most time like this one. I'll build it 6 or 10 by 12, and it'll be in half. And when we get there, we'll just deck it so it goes a little faster. So when this all happened, I was like, okay, well, we stopped. I went to get a permit, and the lady there was like, hey, just draw me a quick sketch of what this is going to be, and we'll do the permit. And I'm like, okay, so that's what I done. And at that point, I didn't know about the guidelines for it to be off the fence or the property line, but as I was telling him, I'll move it. I just didn't know. If I would have knew, it would be where it is, but once I trim it down, it'll meet them guidelines.
Okay.
Okay, so Jonathan, will you go back to the picture, to the previous one showing okay, so you're not intentionally, see the picture on the right that's got the area around to maybe include more chairs or a place to sit outside, out from under the roof? So that's not the way it's going to look. It's actually going to be exactly like the one on the left.
It will be like the one with the tin roof, just a little bit. And the only reason for that is that was the first design we come up with, and then we went more towards this one. So that backyard, when it rains, it stays in like 2 foot of water. So when this happened, it was like, okay, if water hits the roof and it's going to be splashing up, let's give it about 1.5 foot overhang around the side.
Right.
So It'll be basically the middle picture, the big one, with a tin roof, but the overhang of the floor will be about 1 foot all the way around.
Right.
And what is the style of the roof? Is it a hip roof or a pitched roof?
It's a pitch roof.
And what style of is the corbels?
Do what now?
It looks like on the one on the right, there's these straight corbels in the corner, and then on the one on the left, there's these sort of rounded ones. Are those part of the design that's planned to be completed?
No.
Okay. What about the detailing with sort of the exposed roof? You know, this detailing at the pitch on the right with the 3 pieces of vertical wood and the metal bracket. Is that part of the design?
That will be there. It's called a king's crown. It's just for looks. Sometimes we put them, sometimes I don't, and it's just some people like that look, so that's just what we went with.
Okay, so I'm getting confused now, because the one on the right, we've got that gabled roof, and the other one, the one on the left, is that hipped roof. So we're doing the hipped roof.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're not doing those 3, like on the right-hand side, you're not, because we've got the gabled end, you're not gonna have that decorative element, right? Because it's a hipped roof.
It don't have to be. We was just gonna put it there just to have it there. It was just for looks. Just don't support anything. All it is for looks.
Okay, I'm just trying, so just so you know, because I know you haven't been to the commission before, and there's a process here and some things that we need, and just because this is what we do. So when we look at the application, we need to know exactly what you're going to do, because we approve that, not possibly adding this, or maybe we'll do that. We really need to know. We need to know, typically, even with something as simple as a gazebo or a pergola, we even want to know the dimensions of the columns. Like how wide are these columns?
They're 4x4.
Okay, so 4x4 at the bottom, and then they come in a little bit, so they become 3x3s, or is it 5x5 at the bottom, and then?
We're talking about the king's pitch. What you're talking about, the size of them?
I'm talking about the image on the left that you said that this is the one it's going to look like, correct? Yeah. Or are your columns going to be straight up?
They're straight up. So
Okay, so it's not going to be this one.
So this middle picture, the one with the shingled roof, I was thinking it might have been removed when I sent the other one. So my idea, or what it's going to, when it's over with, it will look like the one with the metal roof. That's simple, just like that one, except it won't have your pitches on the side. It'll just have the king's crown, and that's it.
All righty. So we won't even look at the picture on the left anymore? All righty.
The columns in the picture on the right, what dimension are they?
4x4, I think
The
he
columns,
said.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
They're 4x4 columns.
Well, I mean, not in the photograph, though. Those look to be at least 6x6.
Which ones?
On the right?
So the one with the tin roof?
Yeah.
Them posts might be 6x6. You really, when you pull up a picture just to look, you really can't see, but they will be out of 4x4.
Okay.
Okay, so now, let me ask you another question.
Okay.
When you talked about the overhang of the roof, so we've got a 10 by 12 space allocated for this gazebo.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the overhang of the roof included in that 10 by 12? Okay, so it's not going to be any, like if you drew lines down from the edges of the roof, from the
straight
eaves,
down.
it's going to be 10 by 12.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and we've got that, the height of the platform is what?
It's 8 inches.
8 inches, thank you. Cedar, right? Did we say cedar? And we've got a standing seam metal roof. Did we have the specs on that? Was that included in the packet? The roofing material, is that in the packet? I don't remember.
Is
There it
this
is.
cedar?
Got it. Okay.
The wood that's there is pressure treated lumber.
Oh, it's pressure treated lumber. Okay,
Pressure treated lumber.
got it.
Is it wrapped in cedar, or where did we arrive at cedar?
I don't know. Somebody said
Just
cedar.
the picture on the left
Oh.
was
Oh,
cedar.
okay.
That's it, but that's in material.
Right, okay. So I think we've got this now. So we know it's the picture on the right.
What?
We know that the dimensions now include the roof, right? We've got dimensions of the columns. We've got pressure-treated wood. We've got aluminum sheet roofing. Now, it's the standing seam type, right? It's not a sheet. It's not like a flat sheet. It's got the
It's got your seam.
little profile on it. Okay. Anything else, folks? We've got the pitch of the roof. We've got the height of the roof. We've got the height of the structure.
And we've got it moving.
Yes. And it's going to be properly located so it doesn't interfere with the setback. We got it, right? Does that sound like we've got it?
Yes.
What do you think?
I mean, maybe if we had a transcript, I don't think I got it. To be perfectly
Well,
honest.
It's not the most detailed packet we have ever received.
I mean, frankly,
on
we had a
this.
discussion earlier about the ability of the city to enforce what we approve and not
Yeah.
putting them in the position of trying to guess what it is we approved.
I know.
And for them to review this hearing and try and figure out what this project is, I think respectfully to the petitioner, and I don't believe he intended to be in this situation. I don't know that he intended to be in the historic district. I don't know that he knew that he would. But it because of the laws we have in place, it puts them in a difficult position. And so I guess I would just say that I do not believe I have a clear understanding of the proposal.
Okay. I wonder with this one, I agree with you fully on all of this, because we do have to have, we've got to have the details. We have to have the details, right? We approve the details, they follow up on the details. On occasion, and we've had this with columns before, where there's been a change in the size of the columns, we stipulate that, and they go with it. In this one, I wonder, this seems a little simpler to me. I don't want us to be, it's not that we're designing this on the fly, because we don't do that, but we've got the applicant here who has told us all of the things that are missing in terms of, well, there are a number of things missing, but, you know, he knows what the dimensions are. He knows what the height is. And so I wonder, city attorneys, what are your thoughts on this? This one's a little different than some of the others where we...
The one thing that I do agree that there have been a lot of specifics that seem to have been ironed out here tonight. What I would maybe suggest you to think about is, do you feel like you have all of the specifics that you need in order to approve and let somebody else know what you've approved? And I would give the example of the metal roofing material that is proposed for the gazebo. For example, you know, we've had issues with metal roofs come before the commission recently and not be approved by the commission. Not all metal roofing material is appropriate in a historic district. So, you know, one thing that I could foresee is, without anybody doing anything that they think is wrong or in violation of what's been talked about tonight, have two different understandings go out of this room,
Right.
and the applicant goes and puts exactly what he was talking about, but it's not what we understood, but we've approved a metal roof to go into the building. And I'm just using that as an example.
And actually, I think, Mr. Hobbs, that's a great example, because when I read 28 gauge, spelled interestingly here, aluminum sheet roofing, I'm picturing the picture because we have that in front of us. But the actual words just say sheet, aluminum sheet roofing. It could be just a sheet of roof, you know, with no profile to it. And
I use that as I'm remembering other cases where we've had a slight miscommunication between a well-intentioned applicant in the past and an approval by the commission, and then the person went forward on what they thought had been approved, and but that was not what the commission had understood that had been approved, and we've had to go through those situations in the past.
right, and so your best recommendation to us would be to request, to continue and request full details.
From my point of view, I think the commission would be best positioned for itself, and would put the staff, the buildings division staff, who has to not superintend, but make sure that what is built is what was approved. A little bit more detail on a site plan. Not an engineered site plan, but a little bit more detail in the site drawing, some elevations to show the heights, and then and the materials
Yeah.
to be used would.
Well, and we don't want to put undue burden on city staff when they go to review, a project when it's completed. So, Mr. Simpson, let me explain what's been going on here, because I know you're new to this. When applications come to us, we review all details of it. Important parts of it are, we talk about the size of it, the footprint, but also issues about height, proportion of things, like how high are the columns or the supports, what's the roof, what's the pitch of the roof, all of these things. And then, what is the material? We have approved materials, we have unapproved materials. The issue that we have right now tonight, talking with you, I've got a fairly good idea, but some of the other commission members don't. And we have nothing on paper submitted by you or the homeowner on what this is going to be. We can't just kind of do it willy-nilly like this, because city staff needs to come later and see what you've done. You need to have a really clear idea on what we are giving you the okay to do. So it sounds to me like the best course of action would be to ask if you are willing to continue this, and I'm sorry, it's going to be next month's hearing, but to come back with the detailed drawing, show us the site plan, the house where this is going to be, within that 5-foot setback, and give us the details. One issue, a big issue, actually, is the aluminum sheet roofing. We don't have a spec sheet, right? So there's no spec sheet. So typically, if you saw the other applications, we get spec sheets. Like, what is it you're going to use? What's the product? Give us that sheet. Let us see that. Let us, we've got wood here. Pressure-treated wood, that's a great detail to give us as well. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sorry you've sat here all evening on this, but it just puts us in a tough position, puts you in a tough position, and it puts city staff in a tough position when we don't have all the details. But it sounds as though, just in discussion, that it appears that you're on the right track with the size of it, with the materials of it, but we just don't know because we don't have that. And when you got the permit, I had to draw the quick little sketch. Their purpose for that sketch is very different than our purpose for a sketch like that. We want it really, we want to know, and we want to see it done with enough detail that we can picture it, and we can go back and we can measure and say, oh yeah, 4-inch square columns, we got it. 10-foot height, we've got it. And we don't have that here.
I understand where Kathy's saying that we don't want to put more on city staff, but I really think that they could help you and guide you a little bit better in the layout of exactly what we need. And I think that, they've done this many times before, and so I think that they would be willing to guide you through the process. And that's what they are there for, is to guide you through that process.
Yeah.
And tell you.
I thought the narrative, I wrote a narrative for it, but I don't think all of it was put there, like the 4x4 post and the 2x8 choices and the rafters, but that's fine. Like I said, if I'd have knew more to like how it needed to be a lot detailed, hey, I'd have brought a blueprint and sent it with them. Like, I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, that's
if I would have
right.
knew, that's what I would have done. 100%. I understand that.
Yeah, and
From us
we
emailing, it didn't
appreciate
seem
that.
like
And, this may be a learning experience for you where, maybe there's somebody else in the historic district and you say, hey, I've been through that process before. I know how to do that, rather than somebody else. So, it might be good for your business as well.
Like I said, I build 100 of these things a year, and I just never had one pop up here. So, like, I've got all that, the documents and how they go and how big they are. Just like I said, for what we were talking about, I don't think it was put out there like, hey, you need to be a lot detailed on how this thing needs to be. If so, like, I've got a folder at home that's got every one of them laid out, how I build them and how tall they are, and I could have put it with it. I just didn't know.
Yeah, and it's very clear. You know what you're doing. Yeah. It's very evident in our discussion tonight. So thank you for that so much. It's just that we've got to have that documentation because it stays with this, as the process moves forward. So if you're willing, we'll continue it until, come back next month. So talk to the staff about deadlines and things, getting things into them and what they need exactly for us. And then we can see you next month. Does that sound like a plan?
That's fine.
Okay, so let's have a motion then. A motion?
Motion, if he's requesting, you're requesting to come back next month?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I move to continue to
Do I
next
have a
month.
second?
Second.
Thank you. And we will vote on continuing.
Yes.
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 So, Mr. Simpson, thank you so much for coming tonight. We look forward to seeing you next month. And good luck. And really, talk to city staff. They will help you get through the process. And once we get those details, we're good to go.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Last order of business, the staff approved 9 expedited reviews since the previous HPC meeting, and that's all we have.
Thank you.
Quick question on the expedited review of the University Circle, the White House. The, what appeared to be possibly original wrought iron flower boxes that, were attached to the structure. Why is that always, is that an expedited review item, or what's the story there?
Right, yeah. So the design guidelines, not every project or piece of work is called out in terms of, if it's minor work, major work. So for that specific case, we took the original survey of the house. We viewed it to see if it was mentioned on any of the other houses in that surrounding district. That gave us the justification that it wasn't a historically significant feature to the original home. And we were able to approve that through one of the work classification index. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly which one we used or which design guideline classification that we applied to that, but it was after we looked at the survey of the property and the district itself, that was not something that appeared on other houses or appeared in the historical survey.
Okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I'm glad you
Did
asked that. Thank you for asking
That there was
that.
an explanation and that y'all had looked at that to see whether it was mentioned. Okay, thank you.
And I will add with that, with the style of the house, the colonial style, we went through and looked at different houses across the country that are that colonial style, and not a single one that we could find had those planters underneath the windows. They were all without that.
I'm just, as usual, impressed by the great work that the city did without any of us even knowing and never being appreciated at all.
Yes, we really appreciate all the stuff you guys are doing for us. Thank you so much. And we are done. And this concludes this month's hearing. Thank you, everyone.